Yes. Hello. As you can see, I changed venues from my normal position on the bed, and I'm sitting on my floor because it's kind of hot, because it's spring. Yes. And my floor is cooler than my bed, so I'm sitting on it. Anyway, I was gonna make a video to A, avoid doing homework, because that's why I always make videos, and B, to record some freaking awesome dreams I had last night. Normally I don't remember my dreams very, vividly, which makes me sad, because I like remembering my dreams. But, these were awesome. These were intensely awesome. Yeah. So the first one that I remember having is that somehow the PVTA, the bus system, for the Pioneer Valley, which is where I'm in college, randomly ran all the way to Kentucky, to my house. Well, not to my house. I got off at this weird art museum thing in Lexington that doesn't exist. But anyway, so I rode it home for a weekend, and I chilled at my house, and then it was Monday morning, and I had to get back to Mount Holyoke to go to my biology lecture, and it was like 9:40, and I could not figure out how the PVTA ran back to Mount Holyoke from Kentucky, and my mom was really pissed at me. She's like, you shouldn't have come if you were going to miss class. I'm like, I didn't know I was going to miss class. I can't figure out how this thing works. So there was a really long, involved process of me trying to figure out how to get back on the PVTA, to get back to Mount Holyoke, and finally it turned out that I just had to go back to the same place that I got off, which I somehow just didn't realize that that could even be possible. And yeah, so the PVTA took me back to Mount Holyoke, and I went to my biology class. I was barely like 10 minutes late, which makes no sense. And it wasn't even in Mount Holyoke. It was in my old AP English room, and all of my classmates from AP English were there, and my AP English teacher, Miss Ballard, was like, Elizabeth, I would really appreciate it if you weren't late to biology anymore. I'm like, but I'm never late to biology. It's the first time I've ever been late to biology, and I was late because I had to try and figure out the PVTA. Yeah, and then I sort of woke up and then went back to sleep and had a dream where I somehow got transported to this, like, alien world that was populated by, like, these, I don't know, they were kind of like, anthro-wolves, kind of, but not really. That's the easiest way to explain it. And so I kind of got adopted by this family that consisted of, a couple, like, an older man and a woman, and then their daughter and her son. And there was just kind of randomly disjointed scenes, but there was one where I was, like, in this tea room. I don't know, they were kind of Victorian English in their whole mannerisms and whatever, and their dress and whatnot. And so they were having this tea and discussing things, and for some reason, like, their name for themselves was Geese. And they kept, like, they're being very polite and, like, including me in their geese term, and I kept laughing, and they kept looking at me, and it's like, what? It was just like, geese? That means a very different thing where I come from. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at your customs. And then, they had, like, all these bookshelves filled with these amazing ancient books. Just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Can I look at them? And they're like, books? That's so last century. They all use, like, digital stuff now or whatever. And I was like, but can I look at them? They're like, yeah, they're just boring antiques. You know, have at it. So I went around looking at them, and there were all these gorgeous, like, leather-bound books. And they had all these, like, really familiar-looking titles and things that were just, like, a little bit different. Like, the one I remember the most clearly is, it had a picture of National Velvet. I have a book at home of National Velvet that has this picture on it, but it had some different title related to horses. I don't remember. It was strange. And then there were these two little kids that I was kind of playing with and keeping entertained while the adults talked. There was a boy who, in human ages, would be like 10, and a little girl who was like 4 or 5. And I was playing with them, and then suddenly, like, the boy has this wooden gun. And I freak out. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that loaded? And he's like, yeah, obviously. And I, like, freaked out. For some reason in my dream, it was ridiculously important that I get the gun away from them. Because, like, they were going to shoot something. They were going to kill somebody by accident. But it was like, it was a really weird wooden gun, and so I took it apart and broke it, taking out these wooden bullets. And the kids got so pissed at me, like, they wouldn't talk to me. And they're just like, you broke my gun! And I was just like, but it was loaded! And they were just like, what? And so I went back over to the bookcases or something, and the little girl comes over and very huffily gets a book and just kind of does the kid thing where you just ignore the person even though you're right next to them. It's like, why are you guys so mad? I didn't mean to break your gun. And she's like, broke it. And I'm just like, but I knew someone once who was playing with a loaded gun and they shot themselves in the head and died. She had like this traumatic, she was just like, huh. And I don't know, somehow I found out later that it wouldn't actually shoot, but they teach their children at a young age to handle weapons, and they didn't want them to have a weapon that wasn't loaded so that they'd get used to the weight. I don't know. And then there was another scene where the old woman and the younger woman and her son were in this temple, and they were cleaning for some reason. And they were bickering. The woman and the daughter had real issues. They fought constantly. And then the grandmother was looking after the grandson, and the daughter was, I don't know, she was doing something, and she threw, like, a key, I think it was a key, into the air. And it went behind these curtains that had bells on the tassels. And, like, that was sacred ground. Like, you could not go beyond the bell tassel thing, or these monks would come and get you. And, like, so she had to go back and get the key that she threw, and she rattled the bells and freaked out, and then they all left really quickly. And then there's one last scene where I was following the older woman and her daughter down these limestone-looking stairs into, like, this really cool subterranean cavern place. And somehow we were talking about music and, like, how in my world you have to buy music, which is a completely alien thing to them. It was like music was free, and, like, the concept of buying or owning music would be ridiculous. And then somehow I got on the topic of asking them, they, like, carry these little vials of blood, and I was like, why do you carry around blood? And they're like, serendipity. And I was like, what? And they're like, your lineage, your heritage. And it's like, what? And then we got into this really interesting discussion about how, like, our customs have these things that just, like, can be reconciled, like, we can't understand them. So I was having, like, socio-political conversations with aliens in my dreams. It was pretty freaking awesome. And I'm really glad I remembered them, because they were really cool dreams. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna stop this now, because I've rambled on about the random firings of neurons in my head while I sleep way too long. So anyway. Yay! Window, sunlight, it's spring, yay! Alright, toodaloo.